Divine Grace HH Bhaktimarg Swami. The aim of the analytical study of the material world is to find the soul of existence. The soul of the material world is Vishnu, then, or the super soul. Devotional service to the Lord entails service to the super soul. One process is to find the root of the tree. Very good. And the other is to water the root. The real student of Sankhya philosophy finds the root of the material world, Vishnu, and then, in perfect knowledge, engages himself in the service of the Lord. Therefore, in essence, there is no difference between the two, because the aim of both is Vishnu. Those who do not know the ultimate end say that the purposes of Sankhya and Karma Yoga are not the same. The one who is learned knows the unifying aim in these different processes. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So we'll talk today a little bit about this, and we'll talk also about the significance of the Diksha, second initiation for our brave soldiers who are coming forth. The divine couple, Haripad and Sandhamani. Hare Krishna. Okay, Karma Yoga, which is what the 5th chapter is entitled as, is very similar to Karma Yoga. Let's analyze what these words mean. It means to reconnect with God. Karma means to action. There is no more appropriate wording that you could apply in this case, because Arjuna was thinking, I would just do yoga and I won't do any karma. I was just going to sit down or retreat to the forest. I'll be a nice guy. I'll be a hippie, maybe. And just live off the land and do a little begging here and there. And I will not engage in this warfare. Now, by this time, when the Gita was spoken, Arjuna was a seasoned warrior. He had fought many battles, and he was very, let's say, successful in all of these attempts. But now, for one reason or another, he actually fell into some kind of decline. He became a little bit weak in his determination. And that's okay. Let's say we all have our failings. We have human frailties. Srila Prabhupada speaks about them. And the Acharyas talk about 4 weaknesses that humans have. But one of the areas of faultiness on the part of us human beings is that we lose determination, vrta. We don't have that sparrow-like power to move forward. Does anybody know the story of the sparrow in the ocean? We'll go over it quickly. The sparrow lost her eggs to the ocean. She laid her eggs on some tree near the waters. It could be Pacific, it could be Atlantic, it doesn't matter. An ocean is an ocean. It's full of water, it's full of salt. And so her eggs were taken away, and she got all upset. She demanded to have them back. She was very firm with the ocean, but he was just laughing it up. He thought, this is a joke. Do I have to cater to this little bird here that's really good for nothing? And so she threatened him, if you don't get my eggs back, I will swallow you up. And he just laughed. It was a laughing session. And so then she kept at it feverishly. She was pecking away with the water. And then in the meanwhile, Garuda, the great eagle bird, the carrier of Vishnu, looked down and said, what's going on here? There's some commotion down there, the laughing and the bird working very hard. And so he decided to slow down, coming for a smooth landing, unlike the landing that I had this morning, coming from Ottawa, Canada. On United Terrace, yes, Hare Krishna. They're all the same. I'm not pinpointing one of them. So then, Garuda decided to investigate what's going on, and the Sparrow explain what the situation was, then he decided that he would be the helping hand. He would be an assistant, an agent, secret agent maybe, you can say. And he demanded. We stood there for him against the ocean, on the beach, at the ocean, and said, "You bring those eggs back, but I'll fly you up." Imagine this wing. Oh, now, I mean, action now. So the ocean got intimidated and brought back those eggs with a nice sweet waves. Here we go. Okay. So with determination, great things come. And it seemed that Arjuna had lost his convictions, and Krishna was there to help him all the way through. It took about 20 minutes for a beautiful dialogue to take place before the conch had already been blown, and it was a little bit of a station break, I guess you could say, here. And the war was supposed to begin as soon as the sun comes up. The conch is blown, it's like a war cry, and you're supposed to get on with business as usual. But there was a bit of a hiccup, and the hiccup was Arjuna's hesitation. So Krishna just gave him a pep talk, and it was a unique kind of a pep talk. It was enriched with philosophical content, That made it even better. So Arjuna turned the tide around, and he decided, okay, I'll go ahead with this. And so he engaged in the practice of what's called karma yoga. Yoga means to link with God, what is the desire of God, and karma means to be active. And for a Kshatriya, a warrior like Arjuna, that means that you're an active man. You're a man of action. You don't just sit down and do what the yogis do. You don't do what Brahmins do, or some Brahmins do. Brahmins are painted in different ways in the Vedic literatures. Sometimes they're made fun of, but I just came back from South Africa, and we did a play called Vamana, and because I had South African devotees coming from the Zulu genre of people, they have their own high priest. They're called Sangomas. And some of them are very revered, and they're very sort of level-headed, but some also are made to look like witch doctors. They really go off in a strange direction. So my South African actor, who is a Sangoma, by the way, he actually is officially a Sangoma. He couldn't help himself. He had to go all out and portray that very weird side. And sometimes Brahmins are depicted to be that way. Oftentimes they're a little bit on the chubby side, too many kachoris or whatever it may be. And sometimes they're very haughty, and they can be very arrogant, and they're very demanding and almost bully-like. Have you met those kind of people? Yeah, they're there. But then there's the other side as well. And those are the ones we don't want to be. We don't want to become like those guys. Okay. So Krishna gives us a hint what it means to be a Brahminical kind of person, whether you're born into that culture by birthright or not, really doesn't matter. It's a cultivation of qualities, right? My parents, we come from a Dutch background, and our surname is Vis, which means fish. And probably because the Netherlands is a place where there's lots of fish. Probably my ancestors were all fishermen, And so, I could never see myself, being a fisherman, even if my dad was, which he wasn't. He was great. He was a super dad. But, and I can't stand the smell of fish. Does anybody like smell fish? Go to Chinatown. Oh my God. It is really something. I don't know how to see. They call it fruit of the sea sometimes. Okay. But to see myself going through the channels that Prabhupada has offered us, first initiation and then second initiation, which means the Brahminical status. And we're much more serious about it in ISKCON. We were very lenient in the early days to award second initiation. Prabhupada was very much in the mood of urgency and said, let's get going. that preaching must go on. We must move forward. So we enlisted a lot of, Americans, Canadians, European boys and girls in this system of first Diksha, what we call Harinam initiation, and then the second is the status where you have certain liberties and certain, let's say, obligations and privileges even. A lot of times the Scholar thinks that second initiation, I can go to the deities now. But to be a Brahminical person means that you can be a good teacher. You don't have to be on the altar all the time. You can actually be a teacher of Brahman. Brahman means spirit, right? That's what they don't teach in the school. They don't talk about the spirit. Prabhupada's big criticism is we have big educational institutions all over the place, but there's no educational institution, not one that really highlights the study of the Atma, of the soul, of the spark of life. That's really a problem. It's a problem. So we need teachers, and here are some of the qualifications. I'm referring to chapter 18, text 42. Samadamas Shantir Arajaram Evacha Gyanam Vijnanam Astikyam Brahma Karama Swabhavajam. So the last phrase, Brahma Karama Swabhavajam, means the qualities by which a Brahman is active. And these are the qualities: to be peaceful, do not get riled up about everything. Anger is not a major component to a Brahmanical person, not normally, unless there's a justification behind it. A Brahmin is to be peaceful. When you come into a room full of Brahmins, generally there's something very calming about it. I remember I just flew from Ottawa. I went to an experimental farm place in Ottawa years ago. And it was in this barn, it was in winter then, it was full of cows, and they were being milked, and they were very content. And I felt like I was in a room full of sages, rishis, There's that calming effect, So a Brahminical person generally is peaceful and also will, will incite peacefulness into others. The next quality that's listed here, self-control. Control of the senses. Observe fasts, Ekadashis, special festival days of the avatars and so on like that. Some of them are half-day fast, some are full-day fast. And we don't mind doing that, So even now, there's a little bit of noise going on. It's probably one of the babies back there. But we're peaceful. So we have self-control. All right. We exercise it. Tapa, austerity. Now the word is used even as regular lingo out there in mass media. Austerity means when your government is, everything's tight economically, and everyone has to live by tighter means. You have to take your belt and put extra holes. Maybe we can put extra holes, put a little hinge in there then. And to indicate that I'm just going to eat a little bit less, I'm going to spend less money, I'm going to drink less coffee, less of this, less travel, all that. And people who are wise will exercise that self-control. It's not a bad thing when there's a recession. People think, what are we going to do now? Well, you're going to control yourself, that's all. Okay, so that's called tapasya. And shocha means purity. To be very clean, internally and also externally. I can imagine, you read some of the stories about the Europeans, they wouldn't take a bath for months, they believed that if you took water, it would open up your pores, and then you're susceptible to, bacteria coming inside, and so they would just cover up all the smells with cologne and all this stuff, and Hare Krishna. It's really disgusting. So Prabhupada encouraged us to take a bath, and a Brahminical person usually will take one bath, if not 2 baths in a day. And if that person is doing real shuchi work, like working with the deities, then just whenever you need to, you take a shower. It's one of the greatest things ever invented. Showers, yes, suchi, inside, outside. The internal cleansing comes from chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And with a lot of folk purpose and a lot of intent, good intent. Good. Tolerance is another quality, Shanti, that's the way it's presented here. Tolerance, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talked about tolerance like a tree. The tree has to take a lot. I heard you had a hard winter here. Was that right? It was a harsh winter. I was in Cuba. I was in India. I was in South America. I was in South Africa during the winter, so I missed it all. I'm just a lucky dog. But the tolerance factor, I look at winter and people hate it in a very negative way. But it is like our, Chaturmasya. Chaturmasya for me is 4 months of the rainy season. You're restricted from traveling. But it's a very good time for planning for the coming months. And we have this thing called snow, And snow kind of like blanks out everything. And psychologically in your mind, you look at it, what can I paint over it? Does that mean you got somebody else's face? Whoever is letting go, they should go 10 push-ups, but
Yeah.
there's enough room.
I know.
That's okay. So snow is like a canvas, that's painted with some primer, and then you imagine what can go on top of it. It can be this color, it can be that color, it can be this image and that image and so on like that. It's what you plan during this time. Also, when the weather is very harsh, it's not a bad thing. Actually, it restricts your movement. Anybody who spends too much time in a car should spend less time in a car, in my books. Okay, and it's humbling. It's very humbling when God shows the form, the freaks of nature. Then it just puts you. You're glad for what you have. You're glad you got a shelter. Because gratitude seems to Some people can be very irritated and cuss and swear and curse, but there's no need for that. That's not going to help the situation. Better that you accept what is there, be tolerant, and just this is the way it is. And people complain because the driving, it's hazardous to driving. Well, the snow is here before the tires. That's all I can say. The snow is here. The cars are the problem, not the snow. You're the problem. Okay. So honesty. This is another great Arjuna. Another beautiful trait of what is a Brahminical person. A person who's taking that step, towards evolution, of their own personal evolution. And that means to be honest in the things you do. Now I know a lot of the, let's say the employment out there is geared towards some cheating, some level of cheating, and everybody even addresses that in the Gita. He says, for you, I make no profit, I will charge you such and such, and it's a white lie in the background, he's saying, usually I buy it for such and such, and I'm giving it to you at cost price. Yeah, right. So there's a little bit of that kind of thing that goes along with business, but in the world of Brahminical activities, there's honesty. That means to be genuine. You can look it up. What does it mean to be very honest? And not to film, not to lie, but that to be straight and direct and forward. Another quality of a Brahminical person is to be well versed in jnana, wisdom, to study the shastras, So when people ask questions, and sometimes you're your own student, you also have questions. Well, what did the book say about this issue and that issue? And then it's there, it's to be delivered. Have you ever been in a situation where I don't know what to do, I've got a problem, I don't know what to do, I'm just going to open a book randomly and there it is, the answer's right there, your eyes land right on the issue, and the Gita is magical like that. Have you ever done that before? Yeah. It's a great moment. Wisdom. And then that's called Jnana Vijnanam. Oftentimes Prabhupada translates that or defines it as applied knowledge. Apply your wisdom. It's not good enough just to be a jnani, but actually, somebody else setting up for push-ups. Okay, so applying the wisdom. You know, it's not good enough to be just a Gandhi, but rather to be a bhakta, to be one who moves with the heart. You know? And then overall piety, religiousness. These are 9 particular items that are listed, which would portray the qualities of a brahminical person. And when people want to remember things, they usually stick it on the refrigerator. So this is something that you might consider doing. Those who are taking second initiation, put everything on the fridge, because that is a very popular place. Hare Krishna. Yeah, so Brahmins are like gurus in the community. It takes some time to win the reverence that goes along with the title, but be patient with that. We're not looking for status. You know, we don't want that. In fact, people are very much drawn towards simplicity and again the qualities of honesty. They want that. You know why? Because it's so rare. I mean, you have to look at some other leaders. I won't name any of them, but you know, there's a lack of these particular brahminical qualities, and so there's a need to delve deeply into this world of Brahmanism and you know, the qualities of the spirit, and so that's what we're looking at in terms of these types of things. Prabhupada had a system down before he left us, and he liked to continue on. He wanted people to go for first initiation and then the second initiation. Some people will be on the third initiation. You know what I mean? Okay. So that means, you know, this kind of color. Later on, perhaps. That's rare, but it is possible. It is possible. Generally, in this age of Kali, even the order of sannyas is not highly recommended. In the discussion that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had with Chankasi, a Muslim leader in Bengal, the Lord clearly says, you know, there are certain things that are not supposed to be happening. And giving the order of sannyas is not very, very popular. It's not very commonly placed. But it does happen, and there is a need for those types of teachers who float around and they don't have bank balances, or at least not a big one. But and they need some funds to move around with. But they're there to encourage people, as Prabhupada did when he was with us. He traveled all over. You know, he came to New York, of course, he started there. And he went around the world 10, 11 times to encourage everyone in spiritual life. And whatever he started, you know, he had to actually sort of maintain what was going on. And whenever someone started a center, a temple, or whatever you wish to call it, he took it very personally if someone would close it down. You know, he would just, it was like a great slap in the face for him. Prabhupada was into numbers, and he was into expansion and growth and all those things. And if you don't grow in terms of numbers, that is book distributed, books distributed and devotees made, temples being built, and so many plates of prasadam grown, you know, we will kind of sizzle out and we'll become quite stagnant, you know. If we're stagnant, it's not good. So he was into numbers. He was a numbers man. Yes, he was. Yeah. In fact, perhaps some of you know when he started off, he had like a book or like an accountant, and he wrote down all the expenditures and so on, like they made financial statements, and like some of us are quite weak in that area. But he took it very seriously. In fact, he took everything seriously. Everything. Just the way that prasadam is made, and how the temple is to be kept clean, and you know, all the facets, everything. He left no stone unturned in terms of, you know, making things just right. You know? That was his idea. So these are some of the qualities that we want to cultivate, and it does take time. And you know, I think that each one of them are very profound. Each one of these items: peacefulness, self-control, to be austere, to be pure, to be tolerant, to be honest, to be wise, and to also exercise wisdom, and to overall be very dharmic, you know, do your duty, do your responsibilities. and all those kind of things. Good, good. I was told I should probably finish up. Should I do that now? Okay. I just, thanks very much for that. And I would just like to say that congratulations to the candidates that have come forward to help the community in a better way. We've known you since the days of Cleveland, and we've done a number of things together. And we know you're very active, and you're in the cause every week, which is beautiful, right? And just continue to work hard in the service of the Lord, right? And so, just like the Varman ashram system is established for 4 different types of people, and Brahminical people are those that are fewer in number, but they play a major role in being visionary and giving some kind of direction. And they were always in touch with the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas, the major managers, they would consult with the Brahmins. And I remember, like Nilamani, I know that you had come from Edmonton before you came to Toronto, and then you came here. You were a trader, you know that. Yeah.
The way things are going back, we may have to come back to Canada.
No, it's okay. We need you here. But I remember in Edmonton when I was walking across the country there, I was on Yellowhead Highway, and it's a 4-lane road, and myself and Garuda Vahan, my support person, was walking with me at the time. We met with the police. The police had their sirens on, and they were coming high speed from 2 directions, from the east and from the west. And one of them is it's in the book I wrote, it's somewhere. And so one came in behind us, and then the one that was in front of us, he was coming from the east end, and he went through the median to stop in front of us. So it looked really like we'd done something wrong. And I remember talking to Garuda Vahan, who was walking next to me, and he said, I don't know what we did wrong, but they certainly can't nab us for speeding. So the police came, and it's that hour, rush hour, everyone's like, what's going on? All the sirens, all the muss and the fuss and everything like that. And then the 2 officers came out, and the one in the front said, don't relax, don't worry about a thing. They just came to have a talk with the rocking monk and to get his signature. So then we talked, we chatted for a bit. And I said, in our tradition, which has roots from India, me and my partner here, we're dressed in these robes. We represent the Brahminical order. We're the people who give advice, And then there was what we call the Kshatriyas, which is like you guys, right? People who don't follow the policies, they fall through the cracks, and they need to be corrected, given a warning, if not a citation or something like that, or being put behind bars, And so in the Vedic system, there was a very close bond between us, and the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. So they found out these are the 2, Western white prairie boys who really liked that, and they were smiling, and everyone was slowing down because the sirens, the lights were on and everything like that. And they're just, all they saw was, 2 officers and 2 monks yucking it up on the side of the road. So there has to be a strong bond here. And I think most people, they want stability in their life. North America, I take it that the US and Canada, we have very much a lot in common. There's a line there called the 49th parallel, and it cuts through the lake. I don't know how it does that. It cuts through the Great Lakes. And anyways, there's an artificial or superficial line there. But we are of the same kind of culture. And I think most people, they just want stability. That's all. They want sanity. They want fairness and justice. But all that good stuff comes from here, from this particular culture. And people should be very careful to not shun religious communities too much, even though we do have some bad apples, we do have a lot of terrorism that happens. Like, I'm not talking about the Khalistanis or this group or that group, but even amongst the Catholics, the mafia, they're like a major terrorist group, So they don't represent Dharma. And thus we need people to represent this kind of thing. These kind of qualities are absolutely necessary in order for there to be a wellness in a society. So important, so important. So let's increase the numbers in this Brahmanhood and hope towards the alien society that we live in today, which is very prevalent right now. So I want to thank you very much for coming forward, and we hope other devotees will be inspired to take steps as well. We're all naturally part of God's family, but when we take a few extra vows and a few extra steps, it means so much more. A little more responsibilities can get you far. Maybe too many responsibilities will make you go backward, but you have to know the art of how to balance things very nicely. And Brahmins should be balancing things nicely. They should know when to stop and when to go, right? They're good at the green and the red lights. All right, is there any quickies, questions at all that anybody would like to ask on this particular topic? We really didn't delve too much into the primary.
What text did you read exactly?
Pardon?
You read